Have you ever felt like this? Where strange things happen? Are you going round the twist? Remember that?
I do remember that. Is that kids' TV or something?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why it just came to me the other night. It's like an Australian kids' TV programme where they all live in a warehouse, in a lighthouse.
I vaguely remember that. I think I was too old for it, but I think it was on.
Yeah, I think I was too young for it, actually. Yeah. I think I was just sort of growing into it. It was on just before my bedtime when I was... Welcome to a special edition of Is It?
Okay, so we're not reviewing a plugin today. We are discussing a certain opinion that has arrived on YouTube recently. This guy, AP Mastering, I think his channel is, appeared out of nowhere, told everyone that plugins are a scam and that all EQs are the same, all compressors do the same, and yeah, put out all these videos basically saying he's calling out the plugin industry to be one big rip-off and you can do everything with just stock plugins and you don't need anything else and you shouldn't buy more plugins. You know, did the same, with EQ and compressors. And then it became apparent that he was selling his mastering course, not mixing course, but mastering course, which is 500 quid. Ooh. Anyway.
Ouch.
So there's that.
Watch this space.
But we just wanted to basically say our piece on that. And the first thing, I've got some videos to show you, but the first thing I want to say is that I think it's fairly obvious that if you take a digital EQ like a FabFilter Pro Q3, if you spend enough time, you can make it sound like an SSL EQ or a Pultec EQ or any other EQ you want it to sound like. From the point of view of you can match the curves, probably, I don't know if you've seen his video about that, but when he finally matches the curve of, I think it's a Pultec, you should see the amount of points. There's like 20 odd points. It's like, that is the point. The point is, yes, I can make any digital EQ match the curves of an analog modelled EQ without the analog modelling bit, just the actual curve of the EQ, but it will take forever. And what's the point? The reason I like to grab a Pultec EQ or an SSL EQ is because I'm familiar with those EQs and very quickly I can get the sound I want.
Is there not a harmonic?
There is a harmonic.
Are we coming to that? Am I jumping the gun? Okay.
You are, but that's all right. But that is next. So yes, you can make any EQ sound very similar to any other, but not exactly the same, as we'll show you. But it takes time, and the whole point is when I grab a Neve EQ, it's because I know a Neve EQ will work on that particular thing, or I know that when I'm doing a drum sound very quickly and I'm doing a mix, I want my SSL 4KE because I know what I'm doing with it very quickly. Whereas if I do the same thing with a Pro Q3, it will take me longer. And that isn't what you want. You want to move fast, you want to get familiar sounds. Then, like Dan says, there's the harmonic element. These analog modelled EQs, that isn't bullshit. I do believe, that some of them probably have a generic
we test them on Plug-in Doctor.
We test them all, you can see it. Some are subtle, some are not subtle, but analog modelled stuff does have the harmonic content, the slight distortion that makes them sound analog. So that isn't a myth. That's not a scam. That's real. Whether you like that or whether you think it's necessary or not, that's up to you. But again, when I'm using those channels and I drive into them, and I say this a lot, you have to drive them to hear them. That's the sound I'm familiar with from analog desks. We are from analog times. This sound is doable digitally using these plugins. It's not a scam. It's not bullshit. Anyway, I thought I would do some little tests for myself, really, but also to show you guys, to show that actually there's a little bit more to this than meets the eye. So in this first test, I've got a Maag EQ4, a TDR Nova, and a Logic standard channel EQ, but I've got the HQ setting turned on. And all I tried to do was very quickly with this track you're about to hear is before the video starts, I matched these EQs as best I could just by ear, not by using Plug-in Doctor or anything else like that, just very quickly by ear, getting a similar sound. Now it's not the same. They do all sound different, and that's kind of the point. But also, do they sound different enough that you know which is which? And let's find out, because in this video, I'm going to get rid of the names. Just see if you can tell. Be honest. Say, do you know what? It was obvious which was the Maag because I could hear that airband. Now, is airband a thing that you can't do on any other plugin? No, of course it's not. It's just a very high shelf. It goes up to 40 kilohertz, but you can't hear it up there. But yeah, if you do a boost at 20 kilohertz on something else with a shelf, it will sound very similar. So this is the first one. Have a listen, just see. I'm even going to put a scope up for you so you can see what is going on with that. Be honest, if you look, you can see the curves. They're different, but they sound similar. Again, I haven't gone nuts. It's not surgical. They're not the same. They're similar. They're doing a similar job. Okay, so there was that video. I think we can all agree we could use any of those three plugins to get the sound you want to get.
Yes.
They're not interchangeable entirely, but you know, with less or more amounts of grief, depending on which one you use, you can get a very similar sound. Let's look at a different three set of plugins. This time we've got the AMEC 250, the standard Logic EQ,
Yep.
and the Noise Ash Rule Tech. So three very different EQs. The AMEC, very detailed, but with no graphic representation, so you very much have to use your ears. The Rule Tech, I think, is a very, very faithful emulation of a Pultec, and obviously that comes with its limitations. And then the Logic EQ, where again I'm trying to use it to get, I'm basically trying to get this Pultec sound on all three of these EQs. Let's have a listen and see if you can tell which one's which when I take the names away.
2, 1, go. Of course, I can get a Pultec sound with a regular EQ. Of course, you can go that way. You can't go the other way. You can't use a Pultec to get the sound of a Pro Q3 because it just hasn't got enough parameters. So again, why would you grab a Pultec instead of a Pro Q3? Because I know that if I set it at 60 hertz on the low frequency and I cut and boost the same amount, maybe a little bit more boost than cut, you get the Pultec trick. I like that sound. I know that if I boost at 12k with a slight bit of attenuation, I know I like that sound. I could do that with another EQ, but it takes time out of my day. This is quick. It does the sound I want it to do, and it has a little bit of analog niceness. I was going to say, yeah, must have the stuff going on in the background to make it It's just, this is why plugins exist. Yes, you can get similar sounds with a Pro Q3, but not the same and not as fast. Finally, the other thing I did was I put my favourite SSL 4K channel and the Midas CC Electronic PEQ 3000 into plugin Doctor, and I set a curve up on my SSL, and then I tried to match it with the TC Electronic Midas plugin, which is a pure digital EQ that has no analog stuff, and you can have as many points, I think up to 12 different nodes, and I had to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different nodes to get it close. You can see it doesn't match, but it's close. And then I listened through to it, and yeah, it's very, very similar, but again, it's missing the harmonic content, and it took me quite a while to get those to match. What's the point? Fire up the SSL that you know, that you like the sound of, get on with it. But yes, I can make that sound like an SSL without the harmonic content.
Anyway, the sun's been out, it's been beautiful, and I've been out with the dogs and sort of living life.
I've been stuck in here doing stupid experiments.
Tried to prove an idiot wrong.
I'm not saying the guy's an idiot, but I just think he's got an agenda. He's trying to sell his course, blah, blah, blah. Look, come on. We're all trying to make money on the side doing other things. That's just how this business is if you want to make a living. But calling out an entire industry and saying that it's all a scam, it's just sensationalist. It's not true. I know a lot of people that work in this industry work really hard to make tools that we can use, and I do use. I'm in the middle of mixing an album, which I think is going to chart pretty well. I wouldn't be able to do my job without these tools. So I think calling the whole industry a scam is crazy. And his whole video on compressors, I don't think he understands.
No.
He's saying all the transfer curves are all the same. You're only measuring the transfer curve. You're not measuring anything else in those tests you did. There's way more to a compressor than the transfer curve. So, yeah, don't believe the hype. Keep testing plugins. Test them for yourself. That's what we say in every single one of our Is It Shit shows. Download a demo, test it, use your ears. If it sounds good to you, then it's good, and just use it.
That's Is It Shit shows, not Is It a Shit show.
That's what I meant to say. Anyway, that is the end of my little rant. Thanks for being here, Dan.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, wonderful. Please like the video.
That would be very cool. And subscribe to the channel, maybe become a channel member. There's an Instagram, there's a Patreon, there's a merch store, there's the link to my course and all that. I'm not going to sell it on this one because we don't need any more.
We might do a best of Sean's rants on the Instagram Studio Life 101 at some point as well.
Anyway, thanks for watching. Sayonara.
Adios.